We all know Mike Brewer, from the very earliest episodes of Wheeler Dealers with Edd China through to more modern times with Ant Anstead, and bang up to date with Mark Priestley. Portion have taken pride of place multiple times on the show. What I wanted to know though was whether Mike's personal taste in cars matched the show and what he's learned over all these years. So I headed over to Mike's new gaff, One Automotive, to sit down with the man himself. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Renngineering YouTube podcast. Normally, I'll have to do an introduction, but I think there's only two monks in Tibet that don't know who is sat next to me.
Well, I'm not going to get a big introduction.
Do you want a big introduction?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me sit down. Let me take this in.
I started watching this man on TV years and years ago, probably the same as you, for Wheeler Dealers. But this episode is not just about Wheeler Dealers because that's been talked about to death. There's also a man that sat next to me that is a massive car enthusiast and equally as much a Porsche enthusiast. So that's what we're here to talk to you about today, Mike. This is a heritage episode, so welcome, Mike Brewer.
Thank you very much, guys. I can almost hear a round of applause after that introduction. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. We bumped into each other probably just over a year ago at Bicester, and you said, I need to sit you down and have a chat with you, but I have been a little bit hectic in the meantime. But any excuse to talk the world of Porsche, you've got me. So here we are.
Brilliant. Standard format for these is, and you're no exception to this, to take you back to your youth.
Yep.
So tell me about first introduction to cars, not pre-Porsche, but just anything that happened where that touch paper got lit. Where was that?
Well, I was born into a car-loving family, so I had no excuse really. My dad was a very well-respected and very well-known car customiser. And I suppose the touch paper, if there was one being lit, it was a very impressionable, probably 8-year-old Mike Brewer being dragged around again on a weekend, another custom car show with my dad in the 1970s. And as I got dragged around this car show, seeing people pat my dad on the back and ask him for information, or even to stand in front of a car and have what's it called? Was an Instagram. Instamatic picture taken. And I sort of remember those days, and I used to think, my dad is, people know my dad. And it was because he was a very well-known and well-respected car customiser. So let's dig into that a little bit more, because that is the genesis, right? So tell me a bit, and what was he customising, what types of car, and what ways was he doing it? Well, he made a couple of very famous cars that made the covers of magazines. So one of the most famous cars he helped build for a guy called Mickey Bray, that was a hot rod that was very famous. It was a Ford Popular called Pinball Wizard. And that car is still being copied today. It's still.
I feel like is it purple?
The purple one is the tribute car that I did.
Right. Okay.
The original Pinball Wizard was yellow with orange accents,
right.
Like flames around it. And I can remember that car being worked on by my dad, and being a part of that world and being part of seeing that car's success, cover of magazines, appearing at shows. And it belonged to a guy, but my dad helped build it. And then he did a Marilyn Monroe tribute car called Some Like It Hot, which was based on a Vauxhall Victor. That was also quite a famous car. He also did this is back in the 70s, remember? He did a Chevy C10, which was called Renegade, and it had a Native American on the bonnet that was with his full head.
Airbrushed up.
And my dad airbrushed it. He airbrushed that on the balcony of our flats where we lived in Putney. I'm from Brixton, but by then we was in Putney. And I can remember him being on the block of flats, on the balcony, where he put some plastic sheeting around, and he was airbrushed. He was an airbrush artist as well. Wow. So, that was really, my dad's life, and he had a business doing that. And I had no choice, I was sort of born into it. There were gearboxes on the dining room table, there were engines, coming home for having work done on them. And as a kid, I was told during the summer holidays, I'm the baby of 6, so I had 6 elder brothers and sisters that could look after themselves. But as the baby of the family, I was told to go and work with Dad in the workshop. So 8, 9 years of age, I would be sat on the workshop floor, holding spanners for him, passing him
Finding
a
that
torch.
elusive 10 mil. That it probably wouldn't have been in 10 mil back
Correct.
then.
It would have been
5/8 or whatever.
Yeah,
it is,
5/8. It would have been imperial back then. So yeah, I mean that's my. I sort of got this education from my dad about everything, about buying and selling cars, about restoring cars, fixing cars up. And I got this education without knowing it. It would just become second nature. You know, I just knew it. And by the time I get round to buying my first car, I sort of know what I'm doing and what I'm looking at and how to.
Were you keen and interested and excited, or was it kind of one of those I mean this in the nicest way, pushy parent situation, whereas you've got no choice, this is what you're being exposed to, or were you like, give me more, I need more of this, even at that age?
We were very, very poor as a family. I mean, incredibly poor. We never had any money. We lived in a council house in a block of flats. I'd shared my sister's clothes up until the age of 16. I was wearing their knickers and their socks. You know, it was a hand-me-down family. So if there was a car in the family, if there was a car part of our lives, that was really exciting.
Right.
Because a car becomes escapism. It means that weekend, as a family, we're off to Laysdown.
Right.
You know, we're going to go and spend the weekend in a crappy caravan eating dodgy fish and chips in Laysdown. That was escapism. We couldn't afford to go to Spain or have foreign holidays. And so by the time I was old enough to work, in my family being old enough to work, it was a bit like the soap opera Bread. You had to go out and work and bring some money home to, you know, contribute to the family. I was 14 years of age and working down the markets. And I used to come home and give my mum money. You know, each week I'd give my mum money. But my parents used to say, look, you have to spend some money on yourself, you know. And I like, you know, as a kid, I wanted a nice pair of trainers or a nice pair of shoes and some nice clothes. So I'd make myself look nice. And then by the time I got to like 14, 15, there was this thing in my head that a car, you know, I'm going to have a car. By the time I'm 17, I'm definitely having a set of wheels. So work for it, go to work for it. So from 14 onwards, the shoebox under my bed got stuffed with any kind of cash that I could find by working very, very hard down the fruit and veg stalls to see if I could make some money to one day be able to buy myself my very first car.
Well, let's not hold back any further. What was that first car?
The first car.
How old were you when you got that shoebox back out?
Right, so I bought and sold some scooters. So I was into scooters at the age, I bought my first scooter at 15.
Lambrettas, Vespas.
Vespa, so I got a Vespa, actually, don't tell the police, but I bought a Vespa 90 registered as a 50. When I was 15 years of age, waited for my 16th birthday. My mum and dad said, you sat on the steps of our house. You sat on the steps with your provisional driver's license in your hand at 364 days until midnight.
Right.
And she said, as soon as the clock went midnight, you simply disappeared.
Wow.
And that's what my parents said. As soon as I got on that scooter, my parents never see me again. I was off. That was me living my life and enjoying it. So I bought and sold some scooters and realised that I could do that. I'd modify them, customise them. My dad helped me. He airbrushed a couple of scooters for me as well that were quite well known. And then after I realised with a scooter at the age of 16 3/4, I'd realised you can't really do much with a girl and a scooter.
Yeah.
Scooters are not, you know, it's not like sitting on a comfy chair on a scooter. No. So I needed wheels. So, you know, it didn't take long. As soon as the 17th birthday's rolling around, Mr. Brewer's getting himself a car. So I bought my first car, which was a hearing aid beige. Don't laugh.
No. Mine was a shit brown Vauxhall Nova, mate.
Oh, no, mine was a hearing aid beige Mini.
Okay, that's still all right.
Yeah, it's a great little car for your first car.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love that car. And of course, it spent every single working moment it could do at Epsom Downs with my girlfriend in it. Late at night. And I absolutely love that car. I had so much fun in it.
That kind of stays, no Mini is standard. I don't think there's a standard Mini left.
No.
So what was it, 850, 900,
it was 1,000. It was 1,000 Mini.
Yeah.
But it's got a tragic story to it. So I was only 17 years of age. My first car, absolutely loved it. This is me, freedom, on the road. I drove around illegally probably for 6 months at 17 with a set of L plates on the front. I was seeing a girl that had passed a test, but she wasn't always in the car with me.
Right, okay.
But that didn't matter. You know, it was just like I needed a set of wheels. I did eventually take my test and pass, which is brilliant. But during that period of time, I drove around to my sister's house, and she had a neighbour who had a Mark V Cortina, 2.3 auto gear, lovely car, lovely car. And she reversed off her driveway, and she clattered the front of my little Mini right underneath the headlight and the indicator.
Yeah.
So it just pushed it in. The headlight went down to the ground.
Seam is.
Where the seam is.
Yeah.
The indicator went up to the sky, headlight went down to the floor, and it was a beautiful whacking dent in the front. So I paid £300 for that Mini when I bought it. A lot of money. The insurance assessor had a look at it because I thought, well, I'm insured, you know, claim on the insurance. He had a look at it and wrote it off. And I went, you can't write my car off. He said, we're going to write it off. But don't worry, you get your £300 back. So back then, your insurance company was on the high street. So I went down a couple of weeks later. I was told to, with a letter, go down and collect your cheque. So I went down to collect my cheque at the insurance company after work. And when I walked into the building, the lady was had this big fat checkbook, and she was writing me out a cheque. But behind her, in the garden of this office, or this in the high street, they had a garden back there, was my Mini. And I said, is that my Mini back there? She said, yeah. I said, what will happen to it? She went, oh, it goes to scrap. I said, how much do you get for scrap? She went, £25, I think. I said, well, can you make the cheque out £25 less? And I'll take it.
Wow.
And she said, oh, I'll have to ask the boss. She disappeared. He didn't care.
Yeah.
He said, yeah, give him 200.
One less job to do.
One less job. Give him 275 quid. Let him take his Mini. I still had the logbook and MOT for it. So I ended up driving my Mini home with the headlight staring at the floor. When I got home, I said to my dad, can we fix it? You know, I've got 200...
This isn't sounding like a sad story, by the way. This
No,
is sounding
it
like
was sad because it
1380s about to be built,
well,
right?
it got smashed up. My pride and joy little hearing aid beige Mini got smashed up. I was gutted. So my dad said, yeah, what we're going to do is we'll pull the dent. I had 275 quid. He said, we can pull the dent out.
Yeah.
So I said, okay. I can remember this really well. We tied, my dad welded a hook on the front, or a loop on the front of it, like a pull for a puller. And then we tied a chain round a tree in the middle of our street. Put the chain, put the chain round the front of the Mini. My dad said, go on, son, jump in, hit reverse, go as fast as you can. So, bang!
And then it's a flip front.
And he went, yeah, do it again. All the neighbours are coming out.
Of course they are,
What the bloody Brewer's up to now? Bang! After a few times, you know, the dent was back the other way.
Yeah.
And me and my dad set about repairing it. And with the money that I had, I then bought a set of Mini lights. I painted the roof black, painted the bonnet black, put a set of cibbies on the front, changed the interior. So all of a sudden, this Mini went from being a sad case little hearing aid beige Mini to actually looking quite pretty cool. I had plastic wheel arches as well. Looked really good. I had reverse Mini lights on it, so quite wide. Yeah, they looked amazing. And I drove that car around for the next, I can remember it always overheated. I drove that car around for the next 6 months really happy. And a friend of mine said, I love your Mini, will you sell it to me? And I said, I want £800. And he went, yeah, okay, I'll get the money.
Hell.
And that was my first full rate. That was my wheeler dealer. That was me being my
it wasn't,
first wheeler dealer.
I would say, if you think back, it was if you were buying and selling scooters,
it was,
that was it. In fact, I would say earlier than that, because if your old man's doing it and you're watching that,
him. But that's where it first dawned on me. That was the first time it dawned on me when I got this £500 profit. And you got to think back then, very early 1980s, £500 was probably more than my mum or dad earned in a month. Yeah. And I got £500 profit out of a car, and I'm like, oh shit!
Just because you were punchy enough to ask and say, it's 800 quid, mate.
Correct. And I thought, shit, I can do this. I'm going to do this again. So that set me on a path of buying and selling cars until eventually. It got noticed, and I got picked up and put into the car trade professionally.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm conscious of is it feels like there's a bit of a T-junction here, and one way is entrepreneurial Mike. The other way, this is the bit I'm interested in, because the entrepreneurial Mike, I think everybody knows. The less told story, I think, is, okay, so what happened in terms of your love for cars? Was there the difficult second album, or was it what came out of that Mini?
Everyone who knows cars of a certain generation is now gonna know it was a very difficult second album, because
Morris Minor or something like that.
You're almost getting there. It's worse. My second car was a Morris Marina.
Okay, well, it was close.
Coupe.
Right. Okay.
1.8. I'll have you know.
Yeah.
So it's the 1.8 coupe.
Yeah.
Which you're going from a Mini to a car that's got a much bigger back seat and two front seats that literally roll down.
I can totally understand what your motivation is here, mate.
So it comes. It looks like a double bed inside.
Yeah.
It was red. It was bloody amazing, and it was a 1.8. So it wheel spun everywhere. I could do I could do proper rear wheel drive wheel spins out of junctions, and back then start skiing nuts all over the TV.
Of course it were, yeah.
And I've got a bright red coupe Morris Marina, so I felt a little bit like I was on Starsky and Hutch. I love that car. It always had a flat battery, and I was perpetually selling it. So it was always for sale. And because it was always for sale, I was never ever going to replace the battery. So I used to park it at the top of the next road to where we lived, because it had a hill. And when I used to go around and see my girlfriend, she lived in a block of flats. Yeah. There was an underground car park, and I used to park it on the slope to the other. So wherever it went, it was always, you get in, turn the ignition off, and it become automatic.
Yeah.
You get in, just put it in gear, dip the clutch, let your foot off, in it goes. And
have you got photos of these cars?
I haven't. The Mini I have, but unfortunately not the Morris Marina.
Okay.
That car. It's quite funny, actually, because I then moved on to my third car before I sold my second car. So I was doing quite well. I was working hard down the fruit and veg stalls. I was now in the print, so I was working for IPC magazines. Motor magazine was one of our magazines. So I was now becoming more ingrained in the world of, automotive and cars, and started to understand them professionally, if you like, in that sense. And at that time, I bought my third car without selling the Morris Marina. My third car being a Mark III Escort.
Ooh, okay.
Went back to hearing a beige again.
Okay.
So this is a beige car with vinyl seats.
Yeah.
It was a 1.1L, two-door.
Yeah.
Two-door.
So
two-door, so pretty good, on the right track, Mark III Escort. But I bought that third car without selling the second car. Now, let me go back to the...
Was this, that Escort then, was that quite new? Because
it was quite new.
Sounds like this is early 80s, right?
It is early 80s. So the Escort was probably about 4 years old.
Right, okay.
But it was probably the most unloved Escort that ever was.
Right.
It was beige, two-door plastic seats.
Yeah.
With a, one dial on the dashboard. Speedo. And a petrol gauge somewhere. That was it. It was the most basic plastic floor mats. It was the most basic car. The Morris Marina, I was... moving that from, it was in the way, so I was moving it, and I was driving down Westmead Road in Sutton, and I got to a junction, and the suspension on the front just collapsed, and the wheel just went up inside the wheel arch, and I couldn't move it. It was just stuck. So I thought, what do I do?
Was it the strut top? Or was it
strut top.
Was
just
it really?
Went burst through. So I thought, what do I do with this car? So I didn't know what to do. I was getting rid of it anyway, but I panicked about it, and I'd run home. So I lived about a quarter of a mile away. I run home, got the logbook and MOT, run back to the car, which was still on that junction where I'd left it, put the logbook and MOT on the passenger seat and the keys, and walked away.
Did you?
I never know what happened to it.
Seriously, you don't know
Seriously,
what happened to
so
it?
if somebody's found a red Morris Marina 1.8L on a street corner and thought, I'll take that home and repair it, well done, that was my...
Wow.
Yeah, I give it away. I didn't know what to do with it.
Wow.
Because now I had this Escort, and the Escort, I remember, become my new sort of obsession. I was doing quite well. I was working hard. I was now professionally buying and selling cars at a car dealership. This was one of the part exchanges, by the way, that came in. And I now started to become obsessed on how can I make my Escort, my shitty little Escort, how can I make this look the best Escort ever?
Yeah.
So within, a month of ownership, when my next month's money comes around, set of XR3 telephone dial alloys go on it. The next month, spoiler.
The black rubberized spoiler on the back.
Black rubberized spoiler on the black. The following month, I think me and my dad, me and my dad did it, if I remember rightly. We put a scoop on the bonnet. It's a 1.1. But we put a scoop on the bonnet.
Couldn't pull the skin off a rice pudding, though.
It was just brilliant. I drove the tits off that car. It's the fastest car I've ever owned because it's the fastest I've ever driven.
Yeah.
But my God, was I proud of that car. I absolutely loved it. So that was sort of my first,
humble beginnings.
Beginnings.
I still say this. It doesn't matter what you've got. It's your enthusiasm for what you've got. Yeah. Totally.
I just love them. I just love cars. And they become my bread and butter. Cars became this was now how I was going to earn a living. This was going to be my profession. And
what was your dad saying about all this? Was he still?
He loved it. He still had his garage. Still had his garage. He did change his business. He set up his own business. Not long after this, doing something else, completely something else.
Right.
But he
was rooting for you and kind of like...
and he would help. My dad would always help if there was ever a case where I broke down or I needed some advice or car advice. He was always there on hand. He really knows his stuff. My dad about cars. So no, it was brilliant. It was brilliant to be around him. But I remember I got to a stage where I had my Escort, and I got to a stage where I was so sick, doing so well, buying and selling cars in South London for this dealership, that the boss pulled me into the office. I sold 11 cars in 1 week. He pulled me into the office and he said, "You can take any car you like of the part exchanges, not the Jaguars and the Granadas,
the full retail stuff.
The full retail stuff. You can't take any of that. But any of the part exchanges, you've done so well, you can take it for the weekend." So I peeled off that forecourt a Volvo 245 DL, 4-door, beige, brown velour interior.
You love a beige car, don't you?
Electric windows, power steering and central locking. I peeled that off the forecourt and I drove around to every single person I know, my aunties, uncles, brothers, sisters, cousins. I went everywhere in that car to show people what I'd become. Yeah. I'd become a guy that got a company car, and I've now got a company car that's got these, but if you press this button, the window comes down and you don't have to do that.
I had this same experience in 2004. I was working for Sytner, and it was a Mercedes dealer and a Chrysler and Jeep dealer, and I had a Crossfire, and that was shitbox, right? But at 2004, I did the same thing. The dealer principle when you've had a cracking month, we've been smashing it out of the park, grab a key and off you go for the weekend. I picked this Crossfire up and I did the same thing, drove around everyone I know.
Yeah. I was so proud. I was so immensely proud. So that was me now having, enough success to be rewarded by the people I was working with a company car. And once that floodgate was open, it was never going to be shut again. Yeah. So, very quickly the Escort then becomes a money-making scheme. Now let's sell the Escort and buy the next one and buy the next one and buy the next one. And as much as I was buying and selling cars professionally for a business, on the side I was buying and selling cars for myself.
Were you allowing yourself a period of time to enjoy the car, or was it literally just this is a transactional thing?
They became around that period of time. And this isn't a great period of time in motoring history. Yeah, there wasn't that many great cars in the world back then. You are talking, now we look at them fondly, but you're talking, Cortinas, Escorts, Capris, Vauxhall Vivas. The Cavalier, the first generation Cavalier. You're talking about they were the normal cars that you see on the street. Hillman Minxes and stuff like that. So once you see those cars, through different eyes, as in I didn't see them anymore as a desirable thing because I had a desirable free car to use at the weekend from my boss. I see him as a money-making scheme. Yeah. And it very quickly switched to me wanting to make money out of these cars. Remember, in the back of all of this, I come from a fundamentally very, very poor family. So any kind of success that you're going to make, any kind of money that you're going to make, puts you out of out of what you've suffered. For we sometimes have to share a sandwich, 6 of us. We had no money, our family. So any kind of success that I could see out of cars wasn't enough. I wanted more and more and more. I didn't want to be that person again. I wanted to be this other person. And I wanted to share it with my family. You know, I wanted to share that success with my family. And that's what I did. You know, that's what I did.
Amazing. I mean, it's an amazing... If we stop there, which we're not going to, by the way, that would be an amazing story already. But let's move on from that to the first... Where did the first Porsche come in? Was it a flip and a purchase to sell, or was it actually I've hit the point now where I can do this comfortably, I can buy that aspirational, I can buy into that lifestyle, that culture, that brand? Where was that on the journey?
Okay, so think about, let's go, you know, try and get your audience to think about a period of time. So you're back in the late 80s, okay? So we're not into the 90s. Nobody's walking around in Tashini tracksuit tops yet and Adidas tracksuit bottoms. People have still got big, bold shirts and big, bold colours on. But, you know, fundamentally, the world is quite boring. And I'm standing out the front of a forecourt selling Granadas, Volvos and Jaguars. But there was this thing that used to drive past every day. This thing used to come past, and it was a supercar, but it was a supercar driven by a bloke who looked ordinary. It was a Porsche 911 SC with the wow tail on the back. And it used to drive past every day, guards red, and I used to see this car coming from Wimbledon going up to London because the car site was in Tooting, and he would drive past every day in his shirt and tie. He was what they called a yuppie, termed a yuppie. But this was a car that was utterly achievable. If a Ferrari 208 come past, that was a unachievable car. You'd never see a Lamborghini or anything like that, but you might see a Jaguar E-type come past. Unachievable car. But this Porsche, somehow for a young impressionable guy like me, that I might be able to get one of them. One day, that could be me. I could get one of them.
And that confidence you built up over that time of, you know, being an entrepreneur and kind of being successful, and knowing your background, and me being from almost identical background, man, that's a hook, right? That is a motivator.
It's gonna capture you. You know, because you're looking at a car that defies logic. This is a car that's got its engine, its arse hanging out over the rear axle. It's got this stupid, great big picnic table on the back of it. It defies logic, not only looking at it, but the way it drives. At the time, I'd come off of working for Motor Magazine. And I'd read all the reviews, and I still was obsessed with car magazines. I'd read all the reviews and seeing, you know, people like Russell Bolgin take the 911 SC in Germany on some piece of road and wring its neck and talk about how this car was amazing with its 3-litre flat 6 engine, and I'd just become obsessed over them. I become obsessed over these cars. However, by the time I'm now making enough money to think about even buying one for myself, it was only with the intentions of buying one to sell one.
Wow.
Because it was always, for me, if I could buy a car, use it, enjoy it, and sell it, I could do it again and do it again. And it's almost like I've got this trading up theory all the way back then. And I'm still doing it today. I still do exactly the same today. So my first Porsche 911... I'm working at a car site now in Tulse Hill, South London, just outside of Brixton. I'm 24 years of age.
Bloody hell, that's young to be thinking about buying a 911.
24 years of age. There's a car site right next door that was being partly run by a guy called Gary. We knew him back then, and please God, he doesn't hear this. We knew him back then, we used to call him the Adder, because he looked like the Adder on, what's it called? Not Russ Abbott, the Adder.
A few moments later.
It's lost on me, mate.
No, you will know. The series where they end up going over the wall in the Second World War.
Oh, Blackadder.
Blackadder.
Yeah, bloody hell.
Sorry. Where did that come from? If you cut that bit out.
We'll work it out.
Ready?
It's fine.
So there was this guy next door. And we used to call him the Adder. His name was Gary. And the reason we called him the Adder is because he had a haircut that was cut straight across here. At the time, Blackadder was on, and we used to go, you look like the Adder. And he turned up one day in an SC911, a black SC911. It was a late one, because I remember it was it must have been an 87, because it was G50 box. and he turned up in this black 911, and he pulled up out the front, and that was me. It was like standing me in front of a singer for the first time. I just stood and stared at this car. I could actually get close up to one and stare at it.
And I know what that version of Mike looks like because that's where we met, outside a singer.
Yeah. So I just like, oh my God, this is amazing. And Gary said, yeah, it's one I'm trading. I've got it in. Do you want to buy it? And I can't remember the price at the time, but I just thought, I'm having this.
Whatever you've got to do.
Whatever I've got to do, I'm having it. So that was my first 911.
Mm-hmm.
I remember.
Do you remember what interior?
Black.
Tan? Black.
No,
black
it was
on
black on black. Black carpet, black seats, black black dash, black everything. It had a blank pump radio cassette.
Of course it did.
Which was just beautiful. Back then, you only ever see a blank pump in the Mercedes-Benz, and when you turned it on, you had this sound. It had 2 speakers in the front, 2 in the back. And it was like, with a roller that you go between front and back with the balance, and you're like, oh my God, this is like utopia. Anyway, I can remember driving that car. I can remember driving it and trying to catch myself everywhere I went in the shop window reflection. I would literally drive it to just go past the new Sainsbury's that they built because I knew it had a glass window, just so I could look at myself in the car. I absolutely love it.
And I bet, because again, I've done exactly the same thing, and I imagine most of us have in the car that we love, but for me, especially if you've come from a difficult background, there's a part of that reflection. It's not about looking at the car, but it's almost like a little pat on the back, That's what I get from that.
Well, it was more than that for me because... Remember, I've still got this. I'm still a car dealer.
Yeah.
So not only is it going to be a pat on the back because I bought myself my first 911, it's a bigger pat on the back because I'm going to sell it and I'm going to make some money out of this car. I'm going to spin this car. I'm going to make money, and I'm going to do it again. This is what I'm going to do. So I remember advertising the car back then. It would have been the Exchange and Mart. It got advertised in the Exchange and Mart, and very quickly it got sold. It sold to another yuppie that worked up in London. Turned up with his, Twickenham polo shirt on and upturned.
It's like...
Yeah, upturned rugby collar, big phone. And I remember selling that car and then thinking, I need more of these. This is what I should be doing. I should be buying and selling a few more of these. Very, very difficult to find. Very difficult to find in the second-hand market. Plus, back then, through the late 90s, through the early 90s, all the way through the 90s, up until the noughties, they were repeatedly the highest residual value holding second-hand cars in the marketplace.
Wow.
So, you go and buy something like a Vauxhall Cavalier, residual value after 3 years is basically 40%.
Nothing. Yeah.
A Porsche 911 residual value after 3 years is 78%.
Yeah.
So
your margins are quite small.
Tiny little margins.
Yeah.
But I always needed one around me because it became my company car. I could drive it, and I could enjoy it. I did. Then there was a sideways step in my life, and it's a great sideways step and one that I'm very proud of and still obsessed with them today. The sideways step become all about BMW. Mm-hmm. So BMW at that time were only making 3 cars: 3 Series, 5 Series, 7 Series.
Yeah.
I had become obsessed over 3 Series BMWs E30s.
Yeah, amazing car.
And I bought and sold there'd be car dealers out there that would tell you from South London back in the day, nobody could beat me to them. I bought and sold every E30 BMW that was ever sold in London at that period of time, and there'd be people vouching for that right now.
And I bet it's one of those things you know who that person is that does the E30s, and you're the guy. So as soon as there's one for sale, they're like, well, I'll go and speak to Mike and he'll buy it.
Correct, and I would beat anyone to one Thursday morning when the Exchange Mart Auto Trader come out. Bang, I was first there at the door. 325 Sports were my absolute. They were my thing. Very first date I ever had my Michelle, 1989. I took her out in a 325 Sport. That was my very first date with Michelle, and I absolutely adored those cars. So I had this sideways step into 3 Series. That lasted for a few years before I switched into Integral. I've sort of got these. I have these obsessions. I switched into Integrales. Anything with an eye on the back, anything GTI.
Yeah.
But then Integrales, Fiat Barchettas, M3, E30 M3 BMWs from Germany.
Yeah.
And I switched into that obsession but within that obsession, it brought me back round to Porsche again.
Of course it did.
Because once
There's a proper step change though, from like the run-of-the-mill cars, the everyday cars, to these executive or luxury branded sports cars. Yeah,
sports
definitely.
cars. Because I was young and I was excited and I loved cars and I was still reading the magazines. I was still reading, every week, Roger Stansfield is driving the latest BMW 325 Sport. Oh, what have they done to it now? Oh, it's a 5-speed, it's brilliant. And it's got, or the E30 M3 with its dog-leg gearbox. And it's like, it's got a racing gearbox, It was an obsession, absolute obsession. So I chased these cars. I just went crazy for them. And but my world, it sort of got pulled back round again into the Porsche world when... I bought my very first ever 968 Club Sport.
Right. Bloody hell, that's a good car to come back into.
So I bought a 968 Club Sport. I sold...
So that's a 93?
93. So I sold an Integrale to a guy. It's a K-plate. So I sold an Integrale to a guy and he part exchanged a 968 Club Sport in baby blue, like a Golf blue.
Yeah.
Almost like that colour up there. A Golf blue. With blue wheels, but that's how they come.
That's how and you can get the hardback buckets, or you can get the comfort seats.
It had hardback buckets in it, so it's a proper thing. And I didn't understand it. It didn't live in Glass's guide. There was no way to value it. I didn't understand it, but I just knew I had to have it. So I took this car in part exchange. I obsessed over this car, as in I drove it everywhere. I had 1,000 pictures taken of it. I put it at front and centre in a car dealership. It was car of the week, it was this of the week, it was that. And then I sold it to a guy in Ireland. And as soon as I sold it to this guy in Ireland, I knew that somehow in my life I just had to buy more Porsches.
Wow.
So I started to, again, alongside the Integrales and the E30s, I started to jump back heavily into 911 world.
Were there any cars? Were these all were there any personally owned cars, or is it just makes no sense to own a car myself? They're all business assets. I'm just going to grab whatever the funniest are on the desk at the time.
Yeah, the only car that was personally owned at the time is when I now am dating and very much savagely in love with this beautiful blonde-haired bombshell that I couldn't believe would even fancy me, called Michelle. This is 1989 me and Michelle met. So now we're in the early 90s, 92, 93. The only car that we owned was I bought a Mercedes 190E.
Nice.
Nice car.
Proper Mercedes.
Proper Mercedes. I had a private number plate and I gave it to the car dealer's wife or girlfriend, to Michelle. So that was their family car. But it was a nice car to own. And I felt so privileged to own a Mercedes 190E. But no, all the rest of it, they were sale cars. These were the ways to put food on the table.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, it is fascinating.
It genuinely is.
It was. Now when I talk about it, I was really young. I'm 26, 27 years of age. I was really young, and I'm taking gambles as well with tens of thousands of pounds, coming from a fundamentally poor background that's never seen £1,000 on the table, let alone
multiples of
them. And there I was, quite happily risking and gambling that week in, week out to better my life, better my family's life, just to be better. Be better.
Was it because for me that would terrify the shit out of me, if I'm completely honest. The idea of something going wrong and then ending up back there. I know it's a motivator, but it must have felt exciting, really exciting to be in that kind of...
It was exciting. This is the interesting bit, okay? So I met Michelle. Now, Michelle run when I first met her, she ran a boutique, a men's boutique. She actually tried to sell me some shirts. That was on the first time I met her. The second time round, 7 months later, she was running a fruit and veg stall, just like me as a youngster, in Streatham High Street. And I fell in love with this woman. I just needed this woman in my life. When Michelle jumped into my life, she, right from the outset, she come to work with me, right from the outset, it was, do it. You can do it. Do it. You can do this. And I go, but look, I'm going to buy an M3 BMW from a guy in Germany I've never met, and it's £23,000. That is £23,000 is 4 Escort XR3s.
Yeah.
And I'm going to buy one car with one profit rather than 4 cars with 4 profits.
Yeah.
And Misha would go, no, you got to go and buy that. Go and buy that M3.
Wow.
And she would be beside me. And in the trade, she was known as the bag lady because she had this little black Hitachi briefcase. When she emptied it up, it was always like
it's all laid out like
it's always full of cash, load of wonga. And she was called the bag. Oh, here they come. Here's Mike and the bag lady. And she'd open it up, and there was always a pile of cash in his bag we used to go around and buy cars with. But no, I couldn't have done it without Michelle. She still does. You know, like just a couple of days ago, I'm humming and ahhing over a summer's here. And I wanted to, my 964's in for repair. We'll talk about that in a minute. But summer's here, and I've got no car, toy for myself. And there's a 991.2 convertible for sale that's quite cheap at Sitness. And Michelle's going, just buy it. Why are you talking to me about it? Just buy it. She's still the same today. Still the same.
It's amazing. So she's actually the living embodiment of like the devil and the angel. She is the kind of...
She's not the devil. She's the angel.
She's the angel,
She's just going, do it.
Because the devil would be the really safe version of you.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do that. You're going to waste money.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
No, Michelle says, do it all the time. And she's always done that. So, that's been a large part of my success, is having a very supportive woman behind me,
So, we got Porsches coming in now. We've got we've got the transactional stuff happening. Where does it go from there? Where do those 911s start creeping in back in?
So they start creeping back in when, fundamentally they become cars for sale. Mm-hmm. But then throughout my car dealing period, they were just commodities. They were things that I had to buy and sell. But back in 1997, I got, so we're still in the 90s, I got plucked out of being a car dealer and put into the world of television on Channel 4 on a show called Deals and Wheels. And one of the episodes of Deals and Wheels, I think we featured a story of the Porsche 911. I don't know if that one ever made it to the show, but we featured a story of a 911, and I knew everything about them. I knew them backwards, inside out, upside down. So I can remember now looking at a 911 with completely different eyes. I'm now this television presenter. I was the new Jeremy Clarkson, if you like. There was no other car show on TV. There was Top Gear, or there was Deals and Wheels. Globally, that was it. So there I am talking about cars in a completely different light as an enthusiast, but somebody who had who knew about them.
Encyclopedic knowledge at that point.
Encyclopedia, somebody who knew about them. Still a lot of people out there think, still today, fuck all about cars, Brewer. They've been my life. So I started to see a 911 now as more of a desirable object rather than a commodity. Something that I shouldn't have sold that last one. Maybe I should have held on to it and kept it because I didn't realise they were worth that much money now. They're going up in value. So I started to see them through completely different eyes. And then through the success of those early years of television, once I'm sort of I'm now not buying and selling cars professionally for a living.
Did you stop completely at that
point?
point?
After 2 years. I kept the site running for a couple of years. But after stopping the site, I've now got television money, which isn't huge. I got paid £200 a show back then. The most I ever got paid from Channel 4 was £1,200 a show.
Bloody hell.
So that would be...
I bet you guys didn't know that. You're all sat there waving your fingers around saying it's a piece of cake. And
no, got £200. I got £200 per show for wheeler dealers, and then at the end of when I did Driven, it was £1,200 a show. That's all I got paid. But I was still buying and selling cars in the background. That's what I did.
Yeah, sure.
Anyway, I then, when I'm doing Driven, this is where things really change when I'm doing Driven. So Driven is a review program, so it become the sort of new Top Gear, where we're reviewing cars. And my co-presenters, the first one was James May and Jason Barlow, who were both Porsche fans. So we'd talk in the bar every night and talk Porsche. But they didn't last long, they only lasted a year. And then my second co-presenter, not only Penny Mallory, but my second co-presenter happens to be Mr. Jason Plato. And Jason, the first time I met him...
He was full BTC then, right?
He turned up in a Porsche 911 Turbo.
Did he?
For his screen test.
I mean, that's a classy move, isn't it, right?
So Jason Plato turns up in a 911 Turbo for his screen test, and I'm like, this is
We're gonna get on. Yeah.
not only the best tin top racing driver in the country.
Yeah.
He happens to be driving my all-time dream car, and that is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then over the course of the next 4 years, I sit next to him on a weekly basis and watch him drive, or he sits next to me and tells me how to drive.
Yeah.
So I now all of a sudden start to learn from quite possibly the best teacher on the planet. I get taught how to drive a car properly, and we test, of course, not only every car in the marketplace, but we test a lot of 911s, a lot of Porsche. So I ended up now Porsche becomes the most desirable thing that could be in my life. You know, the success that I'm going to make out of television, I'm going to plummet some of that success into my own personal car is always going to be a 911.
Amazing. So what was that? You know, you got Plato sat next to you. You know, he's a good guy. He's a you know, he knows his stuff. But where, like that car that you were like, right, I'm going to put it into my own thing now. What was that? Where did that come from?
So that came from. I can remember one evening I turned up at Jason's house. We were meeting Rob Smedley in Oxford. I was staying with Jason at the time. We were going to meet Rob Smedley, who's now works for the FIA, was Ferrari's chief engineer, Formula One team. We were going to meet Rob in Oxford, and Jason had a 996 turbo. And I remember leaving his house in Thrupp, and there's about 7 or 8 roundabouts on the way into Oxford. And I've never been more excited. And I've been on test tracks with Jason. But I've never been more excited in my life to have this journey into Oxford. It was utterly illegal. Every inch of it was totally illegal. But it was the most thrilling ride I've ever had in a car. And after that ride, that was it. That was the moment I went, I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to experience that moment again for myself. That was that was utopia. It can't get any better than that. That's the best experience you can have behind the wheel of a car. So that's where it all come from. So 996.
Did you go and buy a 996?
Of course I did. Blimey. You're kidding, right? So yeah, I mean, name them. Name a 996, 997, 991. It doesn't matter what you name. I've had one.
Wow.
You know, they have to be in my life somewhere or other. They've had to be in my life. So yeah, I've had them all.
That's wild.
But then, you know, as you get older, so I get older and more successful.
And we're in wheeler dealers.
We're now with
early wheeler dealers,
and I start to get older and more successful. Of course, it now becomes my world is all about classic cars.
Okay.
So now I start not falling in love with every new generation 911 that comes out. I start falling in love with the previous generations of 911. So for me, it goes all the way back to that very first SC, the Adder. The black Adder, Gary, turned up in. It goes all the way back to that. So I start desiring SCs again. So I built up a little collection of SCs, both here and in America. I've got had a collection of SCs. And then they moved onwards.
Just SCs? Nothing pre that? Because that's
what I've got a 1968 2.2T, which is a beautiful car. That's
in the States, right?
That's in the States, yeah. That car has had over £250,000 plopped into it. Engine by Andal, fabrication by Elsner. It's been worked on by Mr. Hunziger, who does all this artwork around. It's on my jacket. So that car is an amazing car. It's incredible. And that I share with Nick. And that's going to be something else. It's an R Grouper car, so that's going to be made to compete in R Grouper events. I've got a 550 Spider, 1952.
20 minutes later.
If you've watched this channel for a while, you'll know why I'm face palming at this point. Is that in this country or is that somewhere else?
No, that's in the States. 1952 550 Spider, 1968 2.2T, and then a small gathering of SCs. So I just went crazy for impact bumper cars.
Yeah. And it's such a shame because obviously everyone's gone backdate crazy, or the last sort of 10 years has been backdate everything.
Yeah, but
actually, I think we're going to see I think we are seeing a bit of a resurgence about the love of just a good old impact bumper.
I think Rob at Singer.
Well, the turbo study, right?
I think Robert Singer looked at me and said, "Why isn't Brewer backdating a car?" I'm convinced he did, because I know Singer very well, and when I was around that world, especially living in California for 6 years, and seeing the growth of that company in those 6 years, backdate, and everyone in California is backdating everything.
Yeah.
I went and bought a 911 SC, a red one that become quite well known, a red one. I took it to Rassant. Me and Rassant blew the engine basically by 964 plenums, individual throttle bodies, Motec engine management, M&K headers, exhaust. We turned it into this amazing sort of GT car, but for the road.
Yeah.
Extracted the maximum you could get out the block without cracking the block open. Me and Andrew did that with that car, and it ended up being a car that celebrated the accordion bumpers. It celebrated that, and I had it lowered, black wheels, group 4 wheels, all that kind of stuff on it. But I celebrated the car as it was with as an SC, and it's funny. Singer are now doing exactly the same. And I'm like, yeah, I know.
I wonder where you got that idea from.
I wonder where you got that idea from. Because I'm doing exactly the same with my 6.4 turbo. We can talk about that in a minute. But no, the SC, my little SC collection, become, again, not so much an obsession, just I almost wanted to save them. I wanted to save them from these people grabbing hold of them and chopping the fronts and tails off of them and backdating them. Yeah. I was like, stop doing it, There's enough.
I mean, I get why people do it, especially like an early ST or something like that. You got the big arches, they look amazing, but unless you do it really well,
it can look
hand
crap.
forms, they can. It's a real
crap.
shame. And then you've sacrificed a car that was perfectly okay in the first place for a bit of a nothing. Whereas if you'd have either go full on, you've learned or you've given it to someone that's a good bodywork mate, coach builder, then fine. But
there's a little bit of me as well, especially when I was in California. This world was kicking off, where people are going to buy an SC for $40,000 and then spending $15,000-$20,000 backdating it, and I go, well, why don't you just spend $50,000 and buy an earlier car?
Yeah,
because they were there. You could have bought a 69, 70, 71, 72. You could have bought any of those cars, but you didn't. You would have bought a late car and made it look like an earlier car. I didn't understand it.
No. I mean, the problem you got now is there's a finite amount of those cars around. I mean, the equity, there's money in them now, so there's equity in them to do stuff with them, but at the same time, there's not enough of them around to go and...
No, exactly, and Singer's destroyed the 964 market by literally every 964. They've eaten them all. They've had them, haven't they? And that's why 964 market's through the roof at the moment, because if you have to buy, I don't know if people know this, if your audience know, that if you want a Singer, a car, you don't
source a car, right?
You have to go and get your own car, pay for it, source it, take it to Singer. So you've not only got to go and buy yourself a 150 grand car, you've then got to hand them a cheque for £700,000-800,000 for them to do their work to it as well, which is quite incredible. Isn't it?
And you know what? There's enough people out there that love them because they've got a 6-7 year waiting list to get one. So they're doing something, right?
They are doing, and don't get me wrong,
they're amazing, right?
The moment my lottery ticket wins, I'm first in line.
I'm like you.
Yes, I'm going to have one because Rob stood me in front of that DLS lightweight study at Pebble Beach. I stood in front of that car. Michelle was with me. She said it was like putting a 5-year-old outside a sweet shop.
Yeah.
You left me there, and you could have walked off for 5 hours, come back, and I would have
still been there.
Yeah, still been there staring at him. It was the detail. It was all about the detail for me in that car, and that's what I aim to achieve with my own personal one.
I'm trying to keep track of this now, so because we kind of hopped from this kind of entrepreneurial journey, and then we kind of moved entrepreneurial right up to date.
So we've gone from entrepreneurial Mike with his obsession of buying and selling Porsches for money.
Yeah,
that was the entrepreneurial side. For me, television Mike, now having money.
Yeah,
and realising that I didn't have to buy and sell them anymore.
Yeah.
I could actually buy them, own them, and enjoy them.
Emotionally, that must have been do you remember a moment in time where you went, I've done it? I think I'm comfortable now. Everything is okay.
That's only been very recent.
Is it really?
That bit has only been very recent. Yeah, I mean, this is another one of my businesses we're sitting in today. I've got another business up in the north of England. I've been pushing and pushing and pushing, and Wheeler Dealers is a brand now, and it's almost a franchise. It's being made in other territories as well, and I've been pushing for that to get to a point where I can actually take my foot off the throttle. I'm going to be collecting my bus pass this year. So yes, this year. So I need to get to. I'm not quite. I think I'm there.
I think you're there.
I think I'm there-ish. But there's still a singer in my life, and there's still something else in my life that I'm not quite there for that yet.
Yeah.
So no, I still need to push on and work a little bit harder. But for my obsession with cars, particularly the Porsche obsession, it didn't stop at just me buying a few SCs. I bought a 912E. I've gone and bought a couple of 997s. I've had a couple of turbos, but
are these kind of like, I've seen something that's a great opportunity, I'm going to grab it, or are they actually, you know what, I've not had a 912 before, let me go and find a 912?
Correct.
Which way around? Was it that way around?
It was that way around. I read a Road and Track review of the 912 back from 1975. So I found this magazine. It was kicking around one day. I read it. It had a picture of a Porsche on the front, so of course I read it. And it was a review of the 912E back in 1975, and it explained the story about there was been a fuel crisis in America. Porsche weren't selling 6-cylinder cars. They thought, let's introduce a 4-cylinder car. They found 2,099 Type 2 engines sitting on a shelf. Fuel injected engines designated for the VW camper, and they went, let's drop those engines into a 911S and mark it as a 912E.
Yeah.
And I read it, and it was when the tester tested the car around Willow Springs racetrack against a 911S, and he said it performs.
Just drive it as feel.
Driver's
car,
feel.
Right? Yeah.
It's a light car. It's a £100 lighter over the rear axle. It drives better. It performs better. You can drive at 10 temps.
Yeah.
Where a 911S, you can only drive at 9 temps. It's going to spit you around on a corner.
Yeah.
And he loved it. He loved the review. So that was right. I'm going to buy one. So I got to have one of them. They sound amazing. I got to have one, and they are bloody amazing. So I have one of those. And then every sort of Porsche thereafter I've sort of owned. I bought everything really. The only one I haven't bought is the 992.
Okay.
That's the only one I haven't bought.
And is that just too new? Haven't kind of emotionally connected to it? I've driven enough of them.
No, I'd love a 992.
Yeah.
I just haven't had the time. I think it's just come time. I haven't had the time. I've been too busy playing with the other ones. But no, I've more or less had everything except for a 992. And now, obviously, we've got the new one, the hybrid.
Which is wild. I mean, we did an episode, the end of season 2, that was talking about what is that car? Because it was just before the embargo got lifted, and we were, it's a hybrid. It's going to be a right old mess. Who wants a hybrid? And then you find out actually, I mean, it's a hybrid, and it's not really a hybrid. It's got
a small little battery in it. Just give you a little push off the line. That's all it is. But no, that seems exciting. But for me personally, there has been a switch. I had a switch moment about 6 months ago. You could call it a very late midlife crisis, because I think I had one of those years ago. You could call this a later midlife crisis, where this place where we're in at the moment, this is 5,000 square foot of my cathedral, where I had everything from a Mark I Transit, an MGA, my Minis.
And there's a beautiful Mini down there.
That's my 1964 Mini Cooper S. This was full of my personal car collections, Ferraris, Lotus Cortinas, all my Porsches, they're all in here. And then I had a moment where I just went, I'm selling it. I'm going to sell everything. Everything's for sale.
Wow.
Everyone looked at me and went, what?
You all right?
Are you crazy? What's going on? And
What,
it was
hang on a
because...
sec, what did Michelle say at this point? Was she...
Michelle said, sell everything except for the Porsches.
Did she really?
Sell everything, but don't sell the Porsches.
Right.
And I said, okay. So I sold everything and was just left with the Porsches. And then...
Was there a rational thought that was like, what was the you're like scrubbing your back in the shower, and then you went, you know what, I'm going to sell everything, or was there any like...
We bought a house, me and Michelle bought a house
Yeah.
that she's really wanted for years, that's a ridiculous house, and it needs a lot of work.
Right.
And although we can afford to do the work, it needs a lot of work.
Yeah.
And I'm a critic, I don't want to sound like I talk to people all the time online and social media about driving their cars. The best thing you could do with a classic car is drive it.
Yeah, yeah.
And there I am being...
You're not doing that, right?
I'm not doing that. I'm being a hypocrite. So I've got all these beautiful cars sitting in here and I'm not driving them. And I'm working so hard making Wheeler Dealers Dream Car, Wheeler Dealers World Tour. These cars are just sitting there for months on ends, not being turned over, not driven. And every time you walk in the workshop, something's leaked. A tyre's flat, a battery's gone flat. And I thought, do you know what? I'm not doing the right thing by these cars. Somebody else got to enjoy them. So that was the moment, switch, get rid of them. But there was also, so when I got rid of all the cars, I kept the Porsches. But then my another little dream happened within my me holding on to the Porsches. I've been chasing a particular 964 Turbo.
Yeah.
I've been chasing it for about 5 years, and it was never for sale.
Not just the model, but that car.
A particular car.
Really,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, 73,000 miles. A couple of owners from new. Belonged to a guy. Unfortunately, bless him, passed away. It was held on by his widow. She wouldn't let the car go. She couldn't let the car go, and it was become an obsession. I found out about the car 5 years ago through a friend of mine, and then I thought that car's got, that car's going to sit there and rot. So that car's got to be rescued. It's got to be bought.
Was that outside? Was it tucked away?
It was tucked away in a garage with, buckets of paint over it and step ladders put on top of it, and it was hidden away from...
It was a Johnny Smith special, basically.
It was a Johnny Smith special.
Yeah.
And then, fortunately, my friend managed to manoeuvre the vehicle away from a lady, just so she could see what life would be like without it, and she realised that it was stupid for her to hold on to it. So I got the phone call that I could now finally buy the car.
Wow.
So I get a beautiful, it once previously been a little bit of a ping in one side, but been repaired. But I get a 964 Turbo, and that becomes, in the world of 964, when they're being backdated to death and everyone's chasing after them to grab hold of them and to take away what makes a 964 special, I thought, shit, I've got this chance not only to grab one, but to actually save it and celebrate it as a 964 and do it in my own unique way. So I'm going to take all the lessons learned from everything I've done over the past 3 decades of television, plus everything I've learned about the Porsche world, and I'm going to make my very own version of a singer.
Wow, okay.
Called a bringer. Called a Brewer singer, which is going to become my version of I'm going to celebrate the 964 in the 1990s, but done in a more modernistic style. Wow,
okay. So have you queued up, over the years, you've obviously got great partners and people that you know, that you trust. We talked about Dave the Trimmer, for example, a great trimming guy. You've got all these people that you've got to line up, and you've got your vision.
I've got a vision. I know what the car's going to look like. I have got amazing people that I can lean upon. I know great painters, no fabricators, no trimmers, engine builders. I've worked with all of them in the past. The car in America is, engines by Andile, the fabrications by Enziger. The paint is by Hunziger. Everything. I've got all these connections that I can lean upon. But with this particular project, I've been obsessing over a company for the past year that I found online. They're based in Poland. They're called Carbone liveries.
Oh, they're brilliant. I'm pretty sure the audience will know Carbone. They're brilliant.
Right,
Yeah.
so I've become obsessed over the quality of their work and over their detail and design. Plus, I've seen their use of materials, what materials they're using, and how they're going about some of their processes. So I always think that if you're going to modify a car, if you're going to modify or restore a car, you want to choose your partners really carefully.
Really carefully.
You want to make sure that you can do the journey together.
Yeah.
Because it becomes a partnership and it becomes fractious.
There's a lot of trust involved.
There's a lot of trust,
because especially if you've got, and we talked about it off camera. I'm not going to mention the company's name or anything, but I let my Outlaw Cayman over to some bodywork, and it was pretty poor what came back, and everyone else had done so. All the partners to build that car had been so in and kind of so like, you need it, I'll get you there tomorrow, mate, and then you get let down by one thing, partner. It's a real shame.
It breaks my heart. That is the kind of thing that breaks my heart. And I feel that the trust has got to go two ways. You're not only giving them, I'm handing them a very expensive car. A 6.4 turbo stays over 100 grand.
Yeah.
So I'm handing them a very expensive car, and no doubt it's going to cost, that again,
at least
probably. To get this car done, but I also need to be trusting with them, or they need to trust me. Not only can I pay them and do the right thing by them, but I can they need to trust that I'm saying the right thing, as in I've got a design interpretation, and they need to put that into a vision for me.
Yeah.
So I've thought about it very carefully and very long and hard. But Powell and Pozemic, the two guys that run the company, are absolute on point Porsche. They're not Porsche people, as in they didn't build this business because they wanted to build a Porsche company. They're a sticker company. They make stickers.
Right.
That's what they do.
Not like that,
but because they made stickers and they was a success, they bought Porsches, and because they love Porsches, they wanted to work on their Porsches and modify them using some of their designs from stickers put into their cars.
Yeah.
Of which then become very well known in their world, and then other people are going, well, that looks nice, how do I get that? And they've grown this business fast and organically, and it's purely driven out of passion.
Yeah.
And I flipping love that. You could see it pour out of them as I walked around their business, and they showed me every aspect of what they do. It's just born out of this love and enthusiasm and passion for trying to take something and make it better.
Yeah.
Singer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's reimagining what's possible with a car. And
you've got to find people to do that. Every part of the build, they've got to have that same passion, that same...
All of it. They've got to. And they've got to bring me along for that ride, So what that meant is that I was happy to jump into this 1991 car that sat in a garage for 12 years and take a gamble and drive it over 1,000 miles to Poland last weekend in 35-degree heat. And I did. And I loved every single mile I put on that car. It was absolutely beautiful.
Wasn't it a
to
completely
drive.
seamless trip, though,
No,
was it?
no. I lost the clutch at the Channel Tunnel, sitting in the traffic. Boiled the fluid, so the clutch disappeared. Panicked, but the clutch pedal came back. Got into from Antwerp to Berlin. Stopped for lunch, and the electric window motor jumped off of whatever the ratchet was.
Yeah.
So that meant we couldn't lock the car. You can't now. No. And you got all our personal stuff in it, as well as all the camera equipment and everything. So, I mean, that even means when you stop for lunch or stop for something to eat, you can't lock the car. Leaving it in a hotel car park, a 6.4 turbo in Germany, a very desirable car.
Yeah.
It hurts, So that meant in garden centres, buying a screwdriver set and an Allen key set in a garden centre, and sitting in their car park under torchlight, taking door cards off and trying to repair electric window motors. But we did it, we did it all. And we got the car there in the end with fans seized, and the brakes weren't working, the brake booster stopped working. So the electrics went on that. So you had to stamp on the brake pedal. But we got the car there. And now it's in the hands of Carbone. And it's their problem. They just got to fix it.
All of those things, all of those journeys, and all those trips. And there's a Lotus Elise that I drove to the Nürburgring in 2010 or 2011, I think it was. And the throttle linkage snapped 20 minutes out of Cheltenham where I was living. And I ended up rigging a bit of climbing rope to the throttle linkage and drove with a hand throttle to Germany. Yeah, totally. But
brilliant.
like those things, those experiences, those trips that are kind of like they're flawed. They're a nightmare.
It's a memory forever.
But honestly, if you sailed through
it
and
would have been
you
boring.
you wouldn't
would have been boring.
You wouldn't be sewing those memories into those cars.
No, and that's what I love about this car. See, now I'm at a stage in my life where I've literally sold everything.
Yeah.
I've sold them all. I've sold all the Porsches now. I sold everything because of this one car. This one car, I'm going to dump my brain into this one car. And that's it. That's going to be my car. It's not going to be one that I'm going to do and then in a year's time it's going to be for sale.
I'm going to check back in with Mike at some point in the future.
You can do,
make
yeah.
Sure that's the case.
When I get the car back, review it. I want you to take it out, review it, drive it, and enjoy it, because this is going to be the car that I'm going to drive.
Is the one that's
This is
gonna
the one
last.
that I want to drive to car shows, pull up, and people go, "That's Brewer's Singer,"
Yeah.
or Brewer's Bringer, or whatever. I want people to just go, "That's Mike."
So when's that car? So it's there now, right?
It's there now.
It's in their capable hands.
Yeah,
Have
he sent me.
About
Shall I send? Can I do this?
Yeah, do we like
Shall I
it?
tell you what Pasemic said to me this morning? So this is genuine. So this just happened this morning. Right. So I dropped the car last weekend. Pasemic sent me this text this morning. Engine oil level too high. Valve covers are leaking. Front air gasket. Connection of two engine halves is leaking. Engine gearbox connections leaking. Leaks from oil lines. I've got some pictures. Welded gearbox mounting. Welded foot mounting on the gearbox housing. Poorly made screws not aligned. Leaks from the drive shafts. Braking system doesn't work. Leaks from the ABS pump. The wires are rusty. The braking system requires a comprehensive inspection, verification and rebuilding. And it goes on and on
just
and
like
on.
a shopping list, basically.
Yes. And I drove that car. That's the car that I drove there, and that was just this morning. But do you know what? Isn't that great? That's what I need from my partner. See,
100%.
My partner's now giving me information saying this is what we found, and this is what's got to be addressed. So,
and let's face it, at this point, those cars are so well documented. There's loads of remanufactured parts. You can get tons of stuff from Porsche now that they've kind of started tooling up again. They're pretty much...
I just wish people didn't put a Porsche tax on them. When you look at the prices, so for instance, if you're going to buy the ABS, not the ABS pump, the booster pump has failed, that sits at the front of the car. Now, I can go and buy a booster pump for anything. Let me go and buy a booster pump for a Ford Mondeo, and it's going to cost 80 quid. That pump's going to
be a Bosch made pump or something like that.
Great, it's going to cost 80 quid. The most I could spend, if it was going to be, a BMW or an Audi, the most I could spend would be 230 quid. That'd be the most I could spend. Well, the booster pump I need to buy for my Porsche 964, which looks the same as all the others, is £3,416.
Oh.
Why? And there's only one reason why, is because of muppets like me, that they go, we can charge these people because they've gone and bought themselves a Porsche 964 and we can charge them for it. But it's wrong. That's the bit that pisses me off about this whole world. Yeah. It's Porsche tax, And they got to get on top of that. These people got to stop being greedy, get on top of it.
So when is that? Have you got a projected... I mean, again, piece of
course,
string, right?
It's a piece of string.
You say like 6 months' time, and that turns into 2 years.
I did say to the guys at Carbone, they went, "Okay, we got the car and we're going to work on it." And he went to me, "Have you got any idea of time?" And I went, "It would be lovely to take the car to the NEC Classic Car Show at the end of the year.
Yeah.
It would be lovely in November to put it up on stage and bring you across and enjoy it." And they both went, 2025.
Bear in mind, so we're in the middle of July now.
Yeah,
so,
24.
Yeah.
And they both laughed nervously. And I went, don't nervously laugh. I actually meant it.
Yeah.
You know? Listen, whatever happens, I want it to be done right. I don't want it to be rushed.
Absolutely that.
And I want them to maximise what they can get out of this build as well. Because, as I say, I've chosen them as partners. I'm paying.
Yep.
But they're going to be doing stuff I know above and beyond. But I've chosen them as partners and I want them to do the job right, but I want them to maximise what they get out of it.
Yeah.
So I want this to become their UK sort of show pony,
Yeah.
if you like, and I want that car to appear at shows and be celebrated.
Yeah.
I really do.
So it's going to be sometime next year, probably.
Sometime this year.
Sometime this year. You're a confident man.
Because they're listening. They're listening. My boys. I love you. I love you. Love, 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 love.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I can't wait to see... I can't wait to hear more about that. I know obviously you're going to want to share that in your own journey, in your own time, and all the stuff that's going to go with it. I'm not going to ask you for details, but I feel like we've got to a natural conclusion, Mike.
Yes, it is a natural conclusion. I am so pleased I've got a chance to do this.
Yeah, yeah.
There is this Porsche obsession that runs through me, but a car obsession, but a Porsche obsession. And it's funny. I want your audience to understand. It really has given me an amazing life. You know, being dedicated to a marque and being obsessed with it has brought me so much joy.
Yeah.
And it's given me so many rewards. I've got to meet amazing people.
Yeah.
I've got to see amazing cars. I've got to go to incredible events, all based around a marque. And it could be, for your audience, it could be Fiestas or Peugeot 208s. It could be anything. But I feel that if you attach yourself to something, almost like a cult,
Yeah.
if you attach yourself to something and enjoy it and embrace it, it can reward you in great ways that you didn't even think were possible.
There you go. So from Blackadder to Mike's latest Bringer, we'll be back at some point in the future to find out more about what's happening with that car. But my Brewer, thank you so much for
It's
your
an
time
absolute
and
pleasure.
your candidness and honesty throughout. If you haven't liked and subscribed, you know what to do. If you've enjoyed this, you've got to like and subscribe at the end of the day. So if you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much for listening on Edd podcast streaming service. Thank you so much. And from myself and Mike Brewer, we'll see you next time. Take care for now. Bye-bye.